Ficus elastica, also known as the rubber plant, is one of the most common houseplants around the world. It's a very low maintenance plant and you can find a wide range of Ficus elastica varieties. Some have plain green leaves, some have dark green leaves with burgundy undersides, and then there are the variegated cultivars with their striking color combinations. So it's no wonder it's such a sought after houseplant. But can it be more than just a houseplant? Could the potted Ficus elastica be trained into a miniature version of their full-size siblings growing in nature? How do Ficus elastica look like as a bonsai? I don't know the answer, but I intend to find out. So this video is the first in a series that will document the bumpy road from a big leaf houseplant to something that can be called a bonsai. I will start by repotting this Ficus elastica that I've been growing for a year, then I'm going to prune it for ramification, and finally we're going to look at how the Ficus elastica looks like 9 months after these operations. So stay tuned. This is what I'm starting off with. A 1-year-old Ficus elastica grown from a cutting. It was growing well until we started getting temperatures in excess of 35 degrees centigrade in mid-August last year, and that's when the leaves started curling up. The small pot is another probable reason for leaves curling, since such a small soil mass is not able to maintain humidity for too long during hot summer months, so it was about time to move this Ficus elastica in a larger pot. One root has grown out of the pot through the drainage hole, so I had to cut it off. I'm squeezing all around the side of the plastic pot while gently pulling on the trunk of the ficus plant, and voila! Next, I start removing the old soil using my trusty homemade root rake. After a while, I had to switch to a plain chopstick to get in between the roots and remove all the soil that I couldn't reach with the root rake. And what do we have here? It's a small piece of tile I placed under the initial Ficus elastica cutting to start the development of a flat root base as part of its training into a bonsai. I know, there's no visible hint of a flat root base in this tangled mass. We will have a closer look at the root base in a moment, but first I have to finish removing all the old soil. A quick rinsing at the end cleans the leftover soil particles and keeps the roots moist while I start working on them. Here you can see how the ficus is able to stand on its base, as there are no roots growing straight down. Since I intend to train this into a bonsai and eventually plant it in a shallow pot, I have to do some corrective root work. This operation is not required if all you want to do is just move your rubber plant in a larger pot. At the moment the tree is developing two visible root planes. There's one here, and there's a second root plane right at the bottom of the trunk. Since the target is to someday plant the tree in a shallow pot, I need to develop a matching shallow root mass. So I'm removing the upper roots and keep the ones forming the lower root plane. This large root is closer to the lower root plane, so I'm going to keep it until I sort out the roots below. And here you can see the effect of growing the roots on top of a flat surface, which is a practice inspired from the Ebihara method used for developing fused nebari. Downward root growth is prevented by the flat surface, and all new roots are redirected sideways, which results in a flat root base. Here I am doing a bit of cleanup by removing crossing roots growing on top of each other and those not growing in a nice radial pattern. Most of the root pruning is done, but there's still one more thing to do. This large root that I didn't remove yet is too thick compared to all the other roots. There's no root below to replace it, but there's this smaller one next to it that could cover this whole area. So I'm going to remove the thick one and leave the thin one as a replacement. And this is what I got in the end. A compact root system as a basis for developing a nice nebari. It may seem too scarce for the size of my plant. However, Ficus elastica is very resilient and will soon recover from this root mass reduction as long as the plant is in a good health state. The fact that I'm also going to prune back the plant will help in reducing the stress on the remaining roots. And speaking of pruning, I'm mainly doing this to promote branching, which doesn't occur naturally on rubber plants this small. I decided to leave the bottom 3 leaves and make the cut right here, which reduces the plant to half its height. The lower part will hopefully become a nice tree someday, while the upper half definitely makes a nice cutting. I got this square container to serve as the new pot for my Ficus elastica. it had no drainage holes, but that was a quick job for a 25mm Forstner bit and a hand drill. Even faster if you use an electric drill. As usual, I covered the drilled holes with some pieces of drywall mesh tape, which acts as a good replacement for drainage screens usually sold for bonsai. Then I added the soil, which is an inorganic mix containing perlite, vermiculite and pumice in equal proportions. To continue the development of a shallow root system with a flat base, I'm going to plant the ficus on top of a large flat stone. Notice that I left a space of about 1 to 1.5 cm on all sides between the stone and the pot. This will only allow the tips of the roots to reach deeper in the pot while keeping the rest of the root base flat. When replanting the Ficus elastica, I'm making sure the roots are sitting flat on the stone surface and arrange them in a radial pattern. In the original Ebihara technique, commonly applied to achieve fused nebarifold maple bonsai, the root base would be fixed on a flat wooden board, then each individual root would be positioned and fixed in place with small nails. Here I'm not doing anything to fix the roots in place since I'm happy with how they look. So the roots can now be covered with a layer of topsoil to complete the potting operation. The ficus plant can barely stand on its own, so it needs some help to prevent it from falling over. I'm placing 3 stones around the base to keep it in place, but you can tie it down to the pot if you want it to be more secure. A generous watering is always appreciated after repotting, especially for a humidity-loving plant like Ficus elastica. Next, it's time to let the plant recover and wait patiently for results. A month later, in mid-September, it appears that nothing much has changed. However, on a closer look, we can see that multiple dormant buds are popping up all over the top of the plant. After 2 more weeks, at the end of September, new growth is becoming apparent. Buds that were visible before are swelling up nicely, and some new buds are also starting to appear. By the end of December 2021, it already had some nice new growth, but it was slowing down due to less than ideal indoor growing conditions. And then I got this. A nice grow tent equipped with a powerful grow light. So I eagerly moved humidity-loving plants in the grow tent, cranked up the light intensity, and sprayed them occasionally to maintain humidity while hoping for an explosion of new growth. I didn't pay too much attention to the grow light manual, so obviously things didn't turn out quite as expected. The high intensity of the grow light, which I placed too close to the plants, along with the high temperature produced inside the tent, had some unwanted effects. Stunned growth, yellowing leaves, and leaf discoloration. This prompted me to read about proper grow light usage and perform a series of tests to figure out the optimum setup. If you want to see the extensive tests I performed on the Mars Hydro SP3000 grow light, you can find the link to the dedicated video in the description section. So what happened to the stick in a pot we started off with 9 months ago? Luckily, the Ficus elastica recovered well after the grow light tent setup adjustment. It has grown a lot, and it now has a nice bushy canopy. The pruning operation resulted in 3 main branches, while the other pots have either dried up or just stopped growing once the top 3 branches started gaining vigor. Apical dominance is the phenomenon responsible for inhibiting the growth of lower buds while pushing more energy in a dominant stem, which becomes the apex. Looking at the trunk, we can see that it has thickened up noticeably. The roots got a good grip in the soil, and there are also some aerial roots which started to grow due to the high humidity environment inside the grow tent. All things considered, I am happy with the progress this Ficus elastica made over the past 9 months. It's now spring and it's time for all tropical plants to go outside. I will let the ficus harden off for a week or so in a place where it only gets morning sun. This is needed to allow indoor grown leaves to get used to UV radiation. Moving indoor plants directly in a location where they get full sun will often result in leaf burn. There's still a lot more work to do to make this Ficus elastica look more like a tree, so keep an eye out for future updates. If you have any questions or want to share your thoughts on this project, please leave a comment in the section down below. Thank you for watching. I'm Stefan, and I'll see you in the next Odd Bonsai video.